you said you made a small introduction. It was a very long introduction and I didn't understand, so let's see. My name is Isabell Klunker. I'm from Germany. I'm working since 15 years in the office of Max Dudler. Thank you very much for the invitation to this great conference. I did spend 2 very interesting days exchanging with the colleagues, and I admire your energy despite these very difficult times. So it's a really great pleasure to be here. I picked a few projects to show you our approach to building continuity. It's a topic our firm is thinking of for already a long time, and we discovered it in many typologies, in many projects. So Max Dudler founded his office in '92, so he's working already for 30 years on all different kind of projects, large ones, small ones, mainly in Europe. And the continuity of urban design, of material, of how you deal like with old structure in renovation, that's a topic which we explored throughout the time. So we always, I don't see it down here, so I look up behind me. So we always start with analogies. That can be a picture, that can be a sculpture, that can be an architecture icon, like these, like an ancient temple in Greece, or like the Building Academy of Schinkel in Berlin. And this gives us some guidance throughout the design process. I want to start with a chapter of building on history. So we did a couple of projects where we worked on national monuments and we renovated them, we made addition to them, and this is, for example, castles or churches, and I want to introduce to you the castle of Hambacher Schloss. This is in southern Germany. We did won a competition in 2004, and this is kind of a symbol of democracy in Germany, since the Hambacher Fest, that's when the Germans united to one nation in the 19th century. So it's a very important building for us. So it's a big question how you deal with a structure like that. And we were commissioned to have 2 additions, a restaurant and an entrance building. So what we decided on was to continue the original structure, which in that sense was like the castle on top of the structure, the hierarchy of the structure, and then the defense wall. So the wall, the theme of the wall was the theme we explored in that project. What we did, we got rid of all the extras, the layers of extra building elements over the time, and brought it back to the original structure. You see the main electro hall, and here you already see the topic of a wall, the very thick natural stone walls. We played with the topic, with the analogy of the stage design of Schinkel. It's an opera design. It's like a star sky. Oh, sorry. And for the addition, we put the functions in between the defense walls, meaning like a terrace or the walkways. And you always have these beautiful views into the landscape. And we did it as well with the building structures. Here you see the restaurant building. And we did an analysis of how the theme of the topic can be the facade of the restaurant. And We used a limestone, a very light limestone, which is from the region and which is used in the castle as well to give it like a unified look. And we have very deep window openings so that you again feel like the thickness of the wall, of the defense walls. Here you see like the old wall and the new. It's slightly different, but has a lot of similarities, and that's the idea of how you, or at least in our approach, of how you can fit in new structures within the old to take the color, the material, and to reinterpret, to transform it. So the facade of the restaurant, we had the idea of having the windows as pictures, the picture frames you see on the left side, on the right side. And instead of having a picture in the frame, you have like the views into the landscape. It's like a framed view. Oh, sorry. Here you see it again. So with all the projects, we like to do the interior as well. So the perfect project for us is when we can do a master plan, when we can work on the building design and then design the interiors with the same kind of approach to material, to like the geometry, to the formal geometry. And the second edition you see here on the far left, it's the entrance building. The analogy is a sculpture of Kigol. It's like the archetypical house, like just a plain house with a roof. We use the same material like in the restaurant and in the castle, but it's polished now and the stones are a little smoother, a little larger, and it even develops around the roof, and the same ideas with the windows, having these really deep window frames. You see the beautiful shades from the sun. And this building stands alone, so this is not integrated between the walls. It's more like a solitude, welcoming the visitors to the castle. Building on cities, it's more like continuity in the urban design process. So we did a couple of projects, mixed-use projects, all kind of typologies, libraries, event halls, music halls. And we do a lot of libraries, actually. I think we are in the process of completing the 9th or 10th library in Germany, and this was the second library we did build. It's in Berlin, in the city center of Berlin, and it's a university library of the Humboldt University. It's one of the largest research libraries. And the urban approach was, it was a competition, and we didn't do what they asked us to do. The idea was, they wanted us to stay in the range like of the typical Berlin blocks, like the 22-meter high building blocks. But instead we developed a high-rise next to the train tracks, and that gave us the possibility of having a plaza in front of the building, so that the building had like an entree at the outside, so people could be welcomed. And it's like a public outdoor space, which is very important, like for public buildings with a lot of traffic from the people using it. So we developed the high-rise. It's typical in Berlin. High-rises were used for buildings which had like a important meaning, like governmental buildings, churches, and so on. So that was the idea behind, to having a library, showing the importance of a library, like in the skyline of the city, and you see like the church towers in the back, and the library now becomes one of these monuments. Now it's black. So we used the analogy of the panoramic views on the city in one of the reading rooms. The facade is made out of natural stone, and we used the grid from the bookshelves from the inside. Again, here we did the interior as well, so we developed the whole building concept, beginning from the facade and then going into the interior. So we have the 1.50 meter grid, and the glass windows and the pillars, they symbolize the book bags, the bags of a book in a shelf. The 2-story high, very spacious entrance hall houses the reception, the cafeteria, and the functions before you enter the library. Sorry. And the building structure is very simple. You have like the traffic rooms circling around the main reading room. You see on the right side, the main reading room houses over 1,000 working spaces, and the offices and the shelves with the books are positioned around it. And from the main reading room, you can reach all the medias in the library. As I said, we did the interior, the wooden cladding of the main reading room. We did do the furniture, the reading lamps, and the wooden cladding was used for acoustical reasons and to provide the air. And here's the main, like the special reading room is 2-story reading room with a view into the city, which houses very precious books, which you can only read in that room. And here you see it at night. And the main reading room, which is roughly 70 meters high. So this has become a place where the students in Berlin meet, and it's a very well-used room. We already did, in the 15 years since the library started operating, we already did 2 renovations because it's so heavily used, and we had to increase the capacity. So the library is not only a place to borrow and read books, it's a place to meet and communicate with other students. The next project is in southern Germany. It's a music and event hall in Reutlingen. So it's a former industrial site you see on the site plan, and we made a park with rectangular tree rows and positioned 3 rectangular structures in it. One of it's like the main music and event hall of the city. You see in the sections the idea, it's like service room surrounding the main music hall. There are 2, a small one and a large one. You have spacious traffic areas which can be used for receptions or to get a drink in the breaks, and you always have the views into the city. And this is extending to the balcony on the lower part of the buildings. That's the main music room, which was inspired by the Vienna Music House. So this has the perfect proportions to have a really clear acoustic value. And this room, like the seating, that's flexible. You can have it flat or you can have it staggered, as you can see in there. So the use is very flexible. And the facade is like analogy from a temple. You have the base. It's a very geometric, very calm design. The windows, they include like two stories, and then you have the crown, which represents the music hall in the inside. It's a metal facade, and the color is kind of matching the tree trunks. And when the trees are grown, the base building shall have the same height as the tree roof, which we are expecting to grow there over the time. Another idea we have in the office is the new density. In mixed-use developments, we are aiming for a city where you can have all your everyday needs, or the quality of life in a city is to have everything in a short distance, like working, housing, going out for food. So we have a couple of projects developing that. So the first one is in Antwerp in Belgium. It's a very large housing development, New Suit it's called. It's next to the river. And on the master plan we had this semi-open block, which consists of a linear building with a high-rise in the back and an L-shaped building. And there are two interesting things about it. So we, as an analogy, we used the hanging gardens of Semiramis of Babylon, and we had like in the L-shaped building like green terraces sloping down towards the courtyard, whereas on the high-rise it's opposite, so it's staggering up and kind of pointing towards the city center. The facade is like a very neutral grid of a stone facade, and it kind of surrounds everything, the winter garden, the outdoor spaces. Oh, sorry. Another project which represents the idea of having like a city within the city is a project in Zurich next to the main train station. It was completed in 2012. These are the two blocks on the left. It's a university, the University of Education, and a office building. And we developed again a concept about a public interior courtyard, plaza, what it means for the city, how you can have the cutouts, how you have to relate it to the city. So this is a new quarter. It's a former railway site, and it starts with a historic monument, the Sielpost you see at the beginning of the development. And then we added like a block structure out of university buildings, with the main building with the canteen and the library and the main lecture hall in the middle, which is higher, so you see it again in the skyline. And we explored the idea of alleys in the city, staircases, courtyard. So this is the main courtyard for the students. It's on a higher level, so it's a little more private. You have to go up from the street. And here you see the floor plan as well from the two buildings. The left is the office building with the same typology. It's an office building we did in cooperation with the office of David Chipperfield and Chikungunya. It's a collaboration, but the ideas of the courtyard, of the cutouts, they were the same. You see the analogy of a staircase like in an old town in Italy, so we studied it. So how wide this alley has to be to make it work. And we looked at very well-known, well-used plazas as references of how the size and the geometry needs to be so that people feel welcome. So in the section you see the layers of the functions. On the in the basement, it's a connection to the main train station. You have a shopping mall, you have the lecture hall, the library. Like, it's a very dense and complex building, and it's a very good example of that. Density is like a very good way of combining like different functions and to have a very spare use of land. Vertical living, in that sense, is a topic. We have several projects in Munich where we explored the idea of high-rises for living. This is an entrance building of a new quarter, Schwabinger Tor it's called. And it's a very small footprint, and the apartments have like two sides they are facing to with these beautiful views on the city. And it's a very minimal facade. You only see stone and glass. You don't see the window frames. And you can see the functions. You can see the office spaces where the window pillar is at a different direction than in the apartment floors. And in that development, which consists out of 9 buildings, we did 4 designs. That's the southern high-rise, and it has like another approach to the facade. It's more like a facade which works with the depths and with the shades. And here you see the quarter of this multifunctional development with shops and restaurants on the ground floor, 3 stories of offices. And then when it's not so loud, you have the apartments on the upper floors. Another project in Munich where we had a master plan competition in 2014, and this is like a development for a whole new city quarter of approximately 15,000 inhabitants then in the end. It's called Neufreimann, and we explored there too. We went to a very popular district in Munich. We looked at the blocks on the streets, at the courtyards, and studied what dimensions have been used there and what's a good dimension for a city to develop, how wide has a street to be. And we advocated like density. As you can see, we designed a lot of high-rises. The high-rises emphasize important places in the quarter, like plazas, the city center, entrance to the new quarter, and a urban density gives you the possibility in that project to have a very large park. It's hard to see, but you have a very large park as a buffer zone to the apartments in the neighborhood. So the first building is being finished. The first habitants did move in April. That's the first, so that's 32 blocks in total. We did design 4 and 1 is being completed. And our approach was to have like a neutral framework, like from the very colorful and vivid life which is going to move in. So it's like we wanted to give it life a framework, like just, you know, step a little back with our architecture, like a timeless architecture is a stone facade, which is lasting and aging very well. And in the inside you have the courtyard, which is more like for the inhabitants with the balconies. So that project deals with the urban sprawl in rural areas and the idea to bring back life into a city center. This is a very little village called Gallneukirchen next to Linz in Austria. And the client had the idea of having a multifunctional quarter which offered like all the functions for the city center, again in the city center, and not being moved out on the outskirts of the village. Here we worked like with the existing city around it. We extended. We extended existing streets, guided them into the quarter, guided them over the river, which is in front of the building complex. We worked with the square type. Oh, sorry. We worked with the square typology and with the staggering of the heights. So we copied the heights of the neighboring buildings. This is a natural stone facade which kind of frames a plaster facade. You see different kinds of windows showing the different functions behind. There's a mall included. There are office spaces, apartments. And that's the view from the river. And you see like the layers, the different layers of function in the new city center. So the last one from that typology is again, how do you deal with density in rural areas? And we decided to separate this development from the neighborhood to kind of have it on a chessboard and having a very dense building structure, and you have from every apartment a view on the Zurich Lake. So this is a project in Switzerland next to the Zurich Lake, and you always have the view on the lake when you walk through the building complex or when you sit on your private terrace. There's always the relation to the sea. A important issue every office is dealing now with, and which we already worked on since probably 15 years, is like saving gray energy, remodeling existing buildings, adding a new facade, renovating it to having like new functions in it. And I picked two buildings. One is a renovation of a building out of the 50s. That's a landmark building in Wiesbaden in southern Germany. It's a ministry of labor and youth. And it's a 3-part building, so we had to keep the landmark building and added the northern part, like we added a new office building. And how do you approach, like if you have a landmark building and you have to continue it, how do you do it, like in the facade, in the interiors? Here as well we were able to design like the traffic area, the staircase and so on. And we decided to study the facade and to transfer it into a kind of a modern way. It's a natural stone facade, and the facade bay consists out of 3 windows which you can see in the existing building as well. And in the interior we had to reconstruct the historic parts in the old building and interpret it in a new way, the interior and the new building, kind of continuing the material and the kind of look. That's a very old building. In that sense, it was completed 2008, and it was a transformation of a high-rise in Frankfurt from the 70s. So as I said, we already worked on these transformation projects for a long time. So the idea was to have like very modern office spaces. So we redid the facade in a way that we reinterpreted it, and even from the urban design, we added a base. So the high-rises originally were separated structures, and we added the base to have like a solid block on the ground floor. With the facade, our ideas is having like just a couple of very good working facade details instead of having 100 random facade details. So here you see like a Miesian corner, and it's very well developed, and you have like the idea that the building is getting, smaller with the height. The facade, so we bind it together, again, 2 floors, so it gets more like a monumental appearance, a very structural, solid look. And it's a glass and steel building. And the last building with in the same kind of range is a transformation of an old apartment store. That's like a task a lot of European cities have nowadays, that like these huge apartment structures are being empty. There is no idea of how to use it. For the neighborhood, it's like a lack of function. It was like a vivid place before. Now there's just this empty, huge structure. So this is in Berlin again, Kalle Neukölln it's called. It's a huge structure. And we were asked to redo the facade and in the interior, the courtyards. And the concept is having some retail areas on the ground floor, a food market, and office spaces. And it has very large outdoor spaces on the roof. And you see the metal and glass facade. And what we did was looking at the neighboring old historic buildings, trying to align like with the roofs. We interpreted our roof as a penthouse style, and you can read the functional layers, the stores on the ground floor, and then the office spaces, and how it's developing in the height. And so that the new building somehow fits within the old structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Klunker. I think one of the notions that you mentioned frequently in the descriptions of the buildings and the projects is the notion of facade.
Oh, very important for us.
Yeah. So is it a representational by the castle, the first project, like in general, original castle, it doesn't have like representational facade, right? It was like a plain construction and structure of the castle for fortification architecture. What with your introduction of new addition, it somehow reacts. It's representational. It's
you think
in a dialogue. No?
A dialogue,
yeah,
but it's not a representative facade,
okay.
I would
but
say.
But it wants to represent a dialogue, maybe. No?
Yes.
Okay.
But in general, I think like the project from the university in Zurich, I think it's like mentally, when we walk through the cities, the facade are the closest of the buildings. And, you know, if you have to cut costs and if you have to become more cost efficient, then you always have to cut the costs out of the facade. But I think this is really what the city lives from. As you can see here in Lviv, which is a very good example, that you have all these beautiful old facades, and, you know, like if a plaza or like a park surrounded by these facades, that's just, you know, a very good urban place with a good quality. So you really like to be there, and I think that's why facades are so important for us. It's like the function within the city. It's
how important is for the facade to represent the structure?
Yeah. So, you know, when we do the stone buildings, we always work on like large-scale stones usually. So the one with the castle, so there's the load-bearing natural stones, so that's different. That's why they had like a smaller size. So usually we try to emphasize the vertical pillars and the beams in our system, and we have just very few joints. But of course, it's a very typical natural stone facade. You just hang in front of a concrete structure. So, but you know, the idea of what the facade represents, and that it has like this very solid appearance, and that it has a standing in the city. That's what's important for us.
Stability and
Yes.
weight. Yes.
And it's kind of, the idea is to have like a timeless facade, which is aging quite well. So we developed a lot of facade details where we looked now over the time of how it's aging, like with the pollution and stuff. And so, you know, like a facade, it's not only the construction, it's the material, like how it interacts with the place in the city, how, like with the material, with the color, and how it's aging over the time. So the idea is, you know, like sustainability comes with a very long-standing facade, of course. No?
Thank you. Thank you. Dear colleagues, maybe there is a question. Of course, I think this is a big fan of yours, of your
really?
architecture. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Isabella.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. It's so beautiful buildings. My name is Vitaly. I'm an architect from Lviv, and I'm a really big fan of your work. And thank you for your analysis, this rhythm, this proportion. Yes, and it's beautiful buildings, really. And we are deeply inspired by your approach when we work with some our building in Lviv, and we realize this building, and thank you. And my question for you, it's about the library. What the local people react to your building, because in Lviv, in Ukraine, when we project something like that, it's a huge discuss and scandal always. And what the people local react in your building, in your country and city? Thank you.
I think it's always a little dividing. So either people love it or people don't agree, like with the design or with the appearance. You mentioned the library in Berlin, I suppose. I think this was very welcomed from the beginning on. And as I said, it's like kind of a symbol now how a library should work. And, you know, it's a symbol like for communication, for like students. So at that position in the city, it worked quite well. And we have all different kind of approaches. We have a city library in Heidenheim, which follows like the function of a city silhouette, and which has a very small scale. And I think this was very well accepted. It really depends on the design. So on the one hand, there's this very abstract architecture with the big scale window I did show to you, which go like over 2 stories. On the other hand, we have projects, libraries, which are, you know, like have the scale of the people in the city. It kind of depends on the function and if the surrounding neighborhood kind of how it interacts with that. And but we always try to fit in the surrounding. The university in Zurich, for example, it had all the setbacks on the upper floors, and they were aiming again to kind of having the same height than the surrounding buildings. So it's not that we are coming like with a very large scale structure and just put it in. We do it very carefully, trying to fit in streets from the surrounding neighborhoods or like taking the heights of the surrounding buildings so that it kind of can grow together. So that's our approach in the urban design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you can also share some examples, some secrets of chemistry inside the studio, how you work with the models or with the sketches, how these unique approaches every time in a context are born.
I think just very regular with like, so what we use intensively is like material samples. Since we are doing the interiors a lot of times too, it's very important to match the color. So like for all the materials we are using, we are having like little samples in the office. But we work just very regular with the 3D modeling and, you know, some like regular models if it's like an urban development. It just depends, but I think it's not different from how the other firms do work.
Regular work, but such irregular and incredible results. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Klunker.